kids, they doing fine.
Cheating, the best way to test prep. When caught, this is a whole debacle. My physics teacher said usually it involves breaking the trust between parents and child. Usually happens in hard classes, common sense. And with phones in class, it's a lot more easier now. So much so that if a phone rings, it will invalidate a whole PSAT's testing group. Teaching administrators never will admit this, but this will never stop. And honestly, people in my Spanish class and others really test prepped in interesting ways. Cheating in general doesn't have really any major causes besides the lazy nature of human beings. However, when there is prolific cheating, then there's usually an identifiable mix of factors. So, let me introduce my Spanish class. The biggest factor causing a class to revert to cheating is the teacher. The teacher was a woman, she was middle-aged and not a bad person, but it's not really a good indication of the likelihood of cheating. She was an immigrant, Spanish was her native language, which would suggest that she would know how to teach the subject in depth. However, she was a bad teacher. The first week of school felt disorganized, reminded me of a fledgling new teacher, and it was her first year out of school, I think. Wasn't really a lesson plan in place, it was just a mess of workbooks and worksheets. She also couldn't control a class. The first test is where it really became apparent, since most of the class got a C or worse, including me, and I'm a good student. Most of us had 2 corrections, except, the people who already knew Spanish. The second test I failed as well. Most of the class did as well too. Thankfully, by the third, I started getting the hang of it. A few weeks into the class, I realized it wasn't just me. Most of the class agreed with me, that even the kids who knew Spanish, that she was not a good teacher. And I must stress, she wasn't a good teacher. Her lesson plan was more of an idea than a plan. She would just throw workbooks and worksheets at you. Side note, other students in other classes verbally harassed her, such as Spanish 2, because they couldn't learn from her. I don't agree with that. You might as well just write off these complaints and ascribe them to lazy, no-good teenagers who don't want to study, but a lot of them are honors kids. Some were a year or 2 ahead in math. Now, to pass the class with an A, they had to cheat. For some reason, studying didn't work. I don't know either. The teacher wasn't the only factor, there was also the student. Honestly, in my experience, honor students cheat the most. Although I am technically an honor student, so I might not have the best sample size. Most of the students I talked to in that class were honor students and got frustrated with her classes so that they decided to cheat. They didn't feel wrong about cheating because it was a stupid class. I feel like this goes without saying, but I didn't cheat. My parents drilled into my head that if you cheat, you cheat yourself. So, I didn't pass that class today, but there's nothing objectively wrong in my view, but I just can't, With these 2 factors in mind, let's discuss the techniques used. Now, I didn't know this until about a few weeks ago, around the time I conceived of this idea. In Spanish class, ironically, a person told me that in Spanish 2, there was a group chat, kind of like an airdrop really, where they spread the answers, and it's a pretty lame example, but this shows what kind of teacher we're dealing with. There was another time when we were doing numbers in Spanish, and we had to do basic arithmetic. This guy is very interesting. He asked to use a calculator to help him on his phone. He's not really dumb, because he was in my science class. She let him do it, and I know his Spanish-speaking friend of his just sent him pictures of his work and to copy off. I sat next to him, and when I saw that, I just laughed and did my work. This is the last minute edition, so if it doesn't flow as well, forgive me. So our Spanish classroom isn't really a class, it's more of like a big class split in 2. Yes, my school is very poor. It was split in 2 with like a movable partition. Unfortunately, this was not very soundproof at all. Quite often, you could hear the other classroom on the other side of the partition. And Spanish 2 took advantage of this. It turns out that people in the Spanish 2 class had friends in it, the other class next to it, in English class. Ironic. And they had to plan together to help the Spanish 2 class cheat. When the Spanish 2 class was taking a test, the English class next door would start banging on the other side of the partition, which would cause the Spanish teacher to go outside and knock on the other door to tell the class to knock it off. When a Spanish teacher was out, people would give answers for the test out loud. You might be wondering why the English teacher allowed this to happen, why the English teacher allowed this to continue after the first time, as I did, but it was her second year teaching, and apparently she hadn't gotten used to it yet. She was very shy, apparently. I had this English teacher, and she's fine now, but I don't know. Now, I heard this story today, when I was writing it, and I was kind of shocked. And I had to share, though. It shows how far people can go. There's another story that I can't believe how someone pulled it off. She would go do stuff on whatever teachers do on a computer, and she wouldn't really watch over us, which would give us a little license to cheat, if you know what I mean. The Spanish-speaking guy would take advantage of this, and he used this situation to help his friend to, get a good grade. And this is the same guy who used his phone to cheat by using a calculator. So when the teacher was on the computer, he would walk over to his friend who was across the room, the Spanish-speaking guy. We would walk over across the room, and get this, whisper the answers to his friend. Jesus Christ. I mean, you had to be there. She never noticed. Now, this is a pretty famous example that I remember, and I will never forget this. I was sitting in class one day, and this is how my old friend treated, and we were doing a test, and the teacher walked by me to help answer my friend's question. And since I'm pretty distractible, I noticed. Now, I don't remember when I noticed because I'm pretty oblivious, but it was during this time. It was during the conversation that they were having to help my friend with the test. I saw hidden under the desk an open book, and it was turned to the page with the vocab we needed for a test. And I motioned to her, being absolutely outraged after the teacher explained it to her. She just smiled. They probably wouldn't have gotten in trouble anyway, since our teacher was pretty forgiving to a fault. However, I refused to believe that teacher never noticed. I mean, she was standing literally 2 inches away from it. If you're looking for a moral, I mean, besides, doing your homework so you don't get a B in a passable joke of a class, can't help you. Really, the moral is don't get caught. I mean, if I hadn't have had a conscience, I might have passed an A in this stupid class. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good one, so I can see you in the next one.